Rugby Chat. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, your best place rate predictions and opinion. And tonight, that's the title of the show is It's a Hat Tip to the Beast, because he has become the most capped South African Super Rugby player in history. And to join me talking about that is Mr. Stephen Harris. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, good evening, Paul, and once again, privilege and a pleasure to be on the TDM as always. But looks like we're riding on our own this evening. No Ashwin, and if you're watching, I hope you get better very, very quickly.
Absolutely, yep. So I was going to rest up, get better, because we need you back tomorrow for the All Blacks edition.
We do,
but. You were doing a little bit of name dropping before we go on air, or do you want to, or is that hush hush, not public information?
No, not really. I just got a call out of the blue this afternoon from former All Black lock Ian Jones, who's on another program tonight. I won't mention it because we want you to stay on this channel right now. We don't want you to go onto any other network. And he just got a few thoughts off me in and around the Blues and. Well, how they were travelling. He knows that I'm a huge, obviously a man who's passionate about not just the Auckland area, but the Blues region, North and Harbour. So I just wanted a few thoughts on how I thought they were travelling. So,
well, no, basically, look, if you go and listen to the radio now, all you're going to hear is second-hand thoughts from here. Why not stay here and get it fresh from the horse's mouth rather than get it second-hand? That's So yes, this is where they steal their ideas from, folks.
Well, he is. I should say he is a Chiefs man. So I should add that in.
He is, but he's also someone that has for the past at least last year. I'm not sure he's doing it this year. Was doing prediction videos for the Pump for Prizes. Which was kind of amusing to watch, but anyway, hey, I told them, hey, I'll do them for them, but obviously they weren't so interested. As it's the title of the show, I mean, congratulations to the Beast, 157 caps. That's some going, isn't it?
Oh, it is. He's pretty obviously really good longevity. Never seems to drop his form, no matter what level whether he's turning up for South Africa, or indeed if he's turning up for the Sharks. And he's a tremendously strong guy as well. He's got a huge cult following in South Africa. We've all basically heard him when he got ball in hand. They all chant "Beast," So it's fantastic. It's great. It's great to have those sort of heroes in our game.
It is, as you say, the longevity is the impressive thing. Not quite up to Wyatt Crockett standards. He's, 200 and whatever it was.
Yep.
So, yeah, not quite there yet. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure anyone will ever get there again. But yeah, no, fantastic achievement for him. And, Wyatt Crockett, perhaps, actually, maybe that's it. Maybe Wyatt Crockett has been behind the scenes saying, reduce the size of Super Rugby, less games is more, because I don't want people catching my record.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. One thing I am sort of thinking about, Masawera, he could have really gone overseas and taken some big money at any time. Maybe he has done a stint offshore. Paul, I stand to be corrected, but
what, the Beast?
Yeah,
not that I'm aware of.
Hasn't done a stint in Japan. Yes, no.
Oh, he might maybe, but then he wouldn't miss Super Rugby. That's true. He could have done that.
Yeah. One heck of a footballer.
Absolutely. But anyway, so we'll come on to Super Rugby later. But we're going to talk about some other stuff first. Make our way around the globe to the USA. And there's been lots of talk of rugby franchises getting to the USA, but no ever actual action. And Major League Rugby is having a successful second season. And they've just announced they're expanding again next year up to 12 teams. So they're adding in the New England Free Jacks, who will be based out of Boston. Old Glory, who will be based out of Washington, D.C. And then Rugby based out of Atlanta. Rugby ATL. I mean, have you heard of a worse name for a team ever?
No, and yeah, well, it's a bit of a touchy subject, isn't it? Team names.
Well, yes, that's true.
I suppose a bit of thought has to go into the name before actually running with that particular name. But I must admit, all in all, I mean, I quite like a lot of the names. The Glenvale Raptors, I think, is a pretty awesome name. And the Seattle Seawolves, it's probably a little almost a bit aligned to their professional football team, the Seahawks, isn't it?
Well, it's all about Seattle, you see, the C bit, and so and Seattle is a really interesting place in the fact that all the teams up there wear similar colours, so they all wear green and blue, which is so basically the hockey team, the soccer team, the American football team. I'm not sure if they've got a basketball team there at the moment or not, but and they actually turn up to each other's games sort of once a season and promote each other, and the fans there quite often support 3 or 4 teams, so they'll actually be season ticket holders across. So it's an interesting place up there. So I've actually got some lined up. I've got an American broadcaster. We're just waiting because Major League Rugby said they were going to be had a big announcement coming up over the next week or so. So as soon as that's made, we're going to sit down and do a for your ears only piece. So one of those pieces I do specially for my supporters over at patreon.com/DrivingMaul, looking at this. But heading up to 12 teams, it looks like the Major League Rugby will be heading towards a conference system next year, which
currently 9 teams at the moment, isn't there, Paul?
That's right. Currently 9 teams. So this, and if you look at the geographical split of the teams, the foundation. So we had 7 foundation teams last season, who were essentially based on the West Coast down through Texas, with NOLA based in New Orleans being the most easterly team. They've been joined this season by Toronto Arrows and by Rooney or Rugby United New York, who are both obviously East Coast, Northeast area teams. And then obviously with Boston, Washington and Atlanta, they're all again on the East. So it looks like, so it started out as a West Coast competition that's now getting much more sort of national coverage, which is good to see.
Yeah, quite interesting too. It's reasonably congested at the top of the table. New Orleans Gold, having played 9 games. Most of the teams have either played 8 or 9 games, but New Orleans Gold on 38 points. Just the 2 losses this season. They do have a game in hand from the second place team, the Glenvale Raptors, on 33. Back to the new expansion team you mentioned before, Rugby United New York on 32 points, and they're on the same number as the Seattle Seawolves on 32, San Diego Legion on 31, and Toronto Arrows on 24. But then there is a big gap to the teams that are struggling at the minute, and that's Houston, Utah, and Austin sitting way down the bottom. And I'm not too sure if they've actually won this season.
No, Austin is still waiting to get their first victory, unfortunately. But so there is definitely a divide there of the top sort of 6 and then the bottom 3 this season in that. But some of the other things to consider are that the Toronto Arrows, because of weather, played their first 8 games away from home and played their second. So that was half their season. The second half of the season, they're playing 8 games on the trot at home. So they've just started their home stretch, as it were, or the home games. So it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of impacts things, because teams like Houston, I've gone blank, Austin, who play in Texas, it gets very hot there, and so hence they play a lot of home games already, so it's interesting to see how that'll impact the season as well. Just looking through the New Orleans Gold team, you see a few South African names in there, but I see also John Moonlight. Now, stand corrected, but I think he's the Canadian international who's also played a little bit of sevens as well. So pretty handy footballer, but a few Kiwis making their way over there as well, Paul. Absolutely, and one of those has been announced is Blues veteran Murphy Taramai, who's joining Glendale Raptors. Now, I had to have a chuckle at this one because Murphy Taramai is 26, and to be called a veteran at 26 is, I think, a little bit harsh. So I brought that up on Reddit with the Major League, on the Major League Rugby subreddit, and they were like, "He's been playing rugby for 8 years as a professional." Well, I'm like, "Yeah, we've been playing top level rugby since he was 18. That's true. That's a veteran in our terms." It's like, okay, yeah, I can see where they're coming from. The rest of the world might think you're not a veteran until you pass 30. But yeah, he's got a good 6-8 years left in him.
Oh yeah, and some he could, if for intensive purposes, he could come back to New Zealand and maybe play Mitre 10 and pick up a super contract if there were injuries or form warrants.
He could do, but the. One of the opportunities you're getting by going to these major league is you are giving yourself the opportunity of getting a green card if you want to. So there is that draw to it as well. And look, as I say, at the moment it's only on the up there. They are very aware they don't want to expand too much more because basically there's just not enough talent to go around all the teams. So they would like an extra Canadian team, probably in Vancouver. But there's not been any noise of one there yet. So you're talking probably, I mean, there's already, I've gone blank as to which one it was now, but there is one more team that is set up to come into the league in 2021. And they've also talked about teams in Kansas, Minneapolis, Chicago, for example. But we'll see if they actually. If they actually eventuate, but yeah, there is definitely one more, and I really have gone blank as to which as to where it is. But anyway, that is being lined up for 2021 from memory. There is still expansion happening.
Must be whatever news that's coming out. It's got to be exciting. So hopefully, maybe if not an expansion, maybe a major sponsor as well. I know, Paul, you've probably streamed a few live games up there. What sort of crowds do they get along?
So last weekend, for example, Atlanta said they had their first home game. Not Atlanta, sorry. Arrows had their first game. Toronto Arrows. They had a sellout, which was 3,000 and something.
Wow.
And they had a little issue in the fact that they ran out of beer. But one of the things that's really Dallas is the other team that's joining in 2021. So there'll be a third Texan team. But one of the things that was really good last year in their first year was we saw letters coming out from Seattle Seawolves, from I think it was the Utah Warriors, saying, right, here's the issues we've had in our first game, here's when they'll be fixed by, and here's what we're going to do to fix things. And that transparency with their fans to say, hey, look, we don't have a big enough bar area, we realise that. There isn't a big enough tailgate area to have a tailgate party, or there wasn't enough shaded areas for people. We're going to bring some umbrellas in for the time being, kind of thing. So they were very responsive to those sort of things, and they're very transparent about it. I expect Toronto to be the same. Is that yes? Have you also heard? I mean, talking about beer at rugby, have you heard the news coming out of Japan and how Heineken is a bit scared?
Wow, no, that's are they concerned as a sponsor about maybe
they're concerned as a sponsor that the stadium don't have big enough bars and capacity to have enough beer.
Okay, that is concerning if you're a major sponsor.
So as the official beer sponsor, yes, they've gone around all the facilities and they turned up at one and was like, hang on, you've got a 60,000 seater stadium and you've got one bar. And it's like, yes. Yeah. And what? No, this isn't going to work, folks. So you would have thought this would have been, when the sponsorship deal was put together, you would have think that would have been sorted out, at part of your sponsorship package. We're chucking a bit of money at your event, but listen, in return, we also want to be selling our product through the venues as well. So, and I think it has been, but the deal was, yes, you are the exclusive beer supplier, blah 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 blah. Fantastic, cool. They've turned up to do the logistics and gone, hang on a second, folks, this isn't going to work. But at least they're finding it out now. I mean, it's a bit later than you'd hope it would have happened, but yes, clearly it's. And I say it's one of those things that has been, I say, they've experienced in the States, and the stadiums have changed appropriately, whereas and they're clearly the Japanese audience and the Japanese crowds are of a different culture to the way they watch sports than the traditional rugby crowds have got. So so yes, they're going to have to change all of that kind of stuff. So it's all there's some really exciting stuff happening in the Tier 2 side of things, and we are really I do feel really at a crossroads in rugby, in world rugby at the moment. That's something I'm going to be talking about more and more, I think, over the next few weeks about this kind of stuff. But good news coming out of North America. Then we'll wing our way across to Europe, where we had some interesting things. So we're going to come on to this later, but actually we'll just pull this a bit forward. So there's been a bunch of suggestions thrown out there by rugby broadcasters. And one of those has been, and we'll discuss the other ones later, but one of the ones they've suggested has been the ability of players to play within Super Rugby at any club and still be eligible for their national team, i.e. Beauden Barrett could go play for the Melbourne Rebels, for example, and be eligible for the All Blacks. I mean, one of the things that's been part of the backbone of success for Australia, for New Zealand and the All Blacks, is access to their players and not selecting overseas players. Wales have tried to do something similar by saying you've got to have 60 caps, so pretty much similar to the Australian system. Unless if you don't have 60 caps, you've got to come home when you sign a new contract. Exeter Chiefs were very, very clever. 3 years ago, when they signed their contracts with Thomas Francis, they included an extension clause that, by the sounds of it, had to be agreed by both parties. And also, I think, had flexible remuneration. So essentially, they were saying, basically, we're going to have an extension clause that's the same as having a new contract, but we're going to call it an extension clause.
Did he hit, when he signed with Exeter, he'd already had 33 caps, is that correct? Which was well short of the 60 mark?
No. When he first signed for Exeter, he actually came from the Rugby Championship and had never played for Wales.
So he was uncapped.
So he was uncapped when he when he joined Exeter, and if you are uncapped, you're allowed to be outside of Wales. It's once you become capped, you've got to go back to Wales, basically. So he was uncapped, learned his trade there, got recognised, got brought into the Welsh side, has collected 40 caps now over the past however many years it's been. So he's not at the 60 limit, but he's gone and got himself an extension, which if he plays, if you think that teams play between 11 and 14 games a year, he could easily reach 60 in the next 2 years. So yes, it's there are some clubs are starting to become much more clever around their contracting.
It's really quite interesting because there's I know what's confusing a lot of people in Wales. Also, Rhys Webb, the halfback, he signed with Toulon, and he's only just had 28 caps to his name, but he obviously can't come back and play for Wales. Correct?
Correct. Now, he was a bit unfair because they changed the rules just after he signed his contract, within like a week or so, which meant that suddenly he was ineligible, which was a little bit harsh. He's also spent all his rugby development, all the years in Wales up until that point, but basically missed out on caps because of injuries. So he was unlucky, basically.
Handy too. He'd probably be the Welsh #1, wouldn't he, if he was available?
Oh, easy, yes. Yep. Yeah, he's one of those players. Charles Piutau's another player that you'd expect to be playing international rugby if they were available. There's a few players like that around who are definitely good enough, but aren't quite. But because of where they are, aren't considered eligible, unfortunately.
Interesting times. Interesting before what you were talking about. So, for example, if a Bowden Barrett did go and play for the Rebels, I personally like the idea of it because if a couple of really good footballers that I follow from rugby players from New Zealand that I follow went and played for South African sides, I'd probably show a little bit more interest if I was watching a South African derby just to see how those guys would be going. That's the sort of plus side, and I think it would make it more meaningful for your average rugby supporter out there who probably doesn't just follow, who maybe just follows his own side, but you'll also look over the fence to see how another Kiwi guy was going for another franchise. On the other side of it, I'm not so sure if the All Black selectors would be quite entirely happy with it, because all of a sudden you take their autonomy away from being able to tell super coaches that, okay, such and such, can we have this guy arrested during the season? I don't know whether the Rebels coach would necessarily agree, or the Bulls coach, Paul, do you think?
Well, look, that comes down to contracting, doesn't it? If you put a contract in place that says that the New Zealand coaches can ask for the player to be rested X amount of times, and maybe there's some sort of compensation payment from New Zealand Rugby when they do that, then that's what the contract is, and you sign the player understanding that's what's going to happen. So, I think that can be handled with contracts personally, and make sure you all want to play together. The big problem that we've had with Super Rugby, really, over the last 4 or 5 years, has been the inequity of the conferences. Basically, we've had one conference that's had 4 of the best 5 teams in it, and that's caused an unbalanced conference, and that's because of the players they've got available to them. So if we allowed some of the good players to go to the other conferences, the other teams, and you had a much more even competitive competition, then all of a sudden this conference situation doesn't become such an issue. And I think that's been more... There were 2 reasons why conferences have failed. One, the initial conference setup was a joke and it was too confusing. And then secondly, it's because we've had unequal conferences. Those are the 2 main reasons, really, it's failed. It's not that conferences are a bad thing intrinsically, as we've seen with Pro 14, where it's working very well.
Based on points, Paul, we weren't seeing the 8 best teams. In fact, we were seeing this ridiculous situation of maybe the best team out of the Australian conference with maybe less points than the 4th place New Zealand team sitting ensconced in the top 4 with the ability to also host a home quarterfinal, shall we call it?
I think we were still seeing the top 4 teams top 8 teams making it into the finals. I don't think we've ever had the 9th the team that's finished in 9th being better than a conference leader in one of the other 2 conferences. But we haven't. But within the 8, the seeding's been. But if you understand that but that's down to having, I say, unequal levels of talent across the 3 conferences, or 4 conferences previously as it was. But it's everyone knows the rules when they start, and if we allowed a bit more movement of players, I think that wouldn't have been a problem. But there you go.
So it's an interesting one, but I think it just adds some extra bit of excitement. It'll add a lot more sort of speculation about player movement as well, and
yep.
And also it'll also probably open up an opportunity for those players that are sometimes seemingly unlucky to miss out. The other component I do like, you get a lot of players that are sometimes unlucky to miss out on Super Rugby contracts. Didn't quite make it, but all of a sudden maybe picking up a contract with an Australian franchise, South African franchise, or even, dare I say it, an Argentinian franchise with the Jaguares. It might be another reason why they end up staying in New Zealand Rugby as opposed to looking elsewhere.
The prime example of that is the Sunwolves, isn't it? There we've got a team that's been pretty competitive this season with a bunch of players that can't make it in New Zealand franchises. Hayden Parker is over there because he couldn't make it. Little is over there again because he couldn't make it. Who's the guy with dreadlocks that plays up in is from the Taniwha, plays 7.
Dan Pryor. Yeah.
Dan Pryor, another one. All these players are players that basically didn't make it through the New Zealand system, but they're showing they're good enough.
And I'll tell you what, Hayden Parker, arguably, you'd have to rank him in the top 2 or 3 first pivots in this competition, Paul.
Ooh. Top 2 or 3 in the competition? Wow. So we're saying he's...
Oh, well, hang on, I'll rephrase that. He's definitely the top goal kicker in the competition.
Yes. And I must admit, I did have to check to see whether the world was ending when he missed last weekend. I had to look out the window and see whether we had meteors falling from the skies and the dead rising up from the graves, because wow, he missed a kick. And he does. That was he's only allowed one a year, I think. Isn't it?
Well, he's definitely his goal kicking is more accurate than the Sunwolves line out. Put it that way. I think they've got the poorest line out in the competition, and to be fair, that's probably cost them games this year.
Yeah, I thought you were about to say he's got more accurate goal kicking than my predictions, but there you go. Which is probably also true. Oh dear. Yeah. So that leads on to Mickey Mouse moment of the week. Actually, I mean, does his miss count as one? I'm not sure.
No, that would be harsh.
That'd be harsh. Okay.
That'd be harsh. That'd be harsh. It was going to happen sooner rather than later, and he was on the wrong side of the field for an effort around the corner kicker as well.
I'm just hearing excuses here.
Yeah. Where's the violin? I'll bring it out.
So yeah, talking about Mickey Mouse moments, the Lions' capitulation against the Sharks was absolutely horrendous.
Did not see that one coming. The Lions, for all intents and purposes, they've probably been the flagship South African team for the last few seasons. How many finals have they been in, Paul?
3, I think, on the trot. Yeah,
three finals. So yeah, who saw that one coming? But 42-5 at home is not good. They were well and truly beaten.
It's not only 42-5. I mean, they should have been way more down than that, to be fair, because it took the Sharks something like 20 minutes to score their first try, and they butchered 3 opportunities before then. And you're like, seriously? This was that should have been a 60 to 80 point drubbing.
And still some quality players in the side. Just looking, I know they've lost a few names over the years, but Elton Yantes, Malcolm Marks, to name a couple.
I mean, Whiteley's injured and stuff, but even so, that's to be taken to pieces like that at home by the Sharks is just that's wrong.
Yeah, it's almost beyond Mickey Mouse, isn't it? Really, Mickey Mouse moment of the weekend. But speaking of Mickey Mouse, my Mickey Mouse moment of the weekend was listen. You almost got the impression with the Highlanders. They've played the Hurricanes twice this year, and they've arguably probably butchered both of those games. Now, speaking of butchered, was their very last line-out of the game. I just didn't see a reason why they had to throw to the rear of the line-out. It got picked off, where they should have just really went to the front. The Hurricanes hadn't competed at the front of the line-out, so you really needed a long straight throw, and there's too much risk involved. So for me, that was a real Mickey Mouse moment for the Highlanders. Just absolutely don't know what they're thinking. I'll give them credit for going to the win. They could have, I know earlier with several minutes to go, they had an opportunity to kick a goal, which I'm pretty sure Marty Banks could have kicked.
You got like 4 minutes to go, kick the 3, get even, get the ball kicked back to you, go back down the pitch and win the game.
Absolutely.
So bad decision making on Mike there, I think.
Yeah. Wasn't a Mickey Mouse moment, but unfortunately, poor old Marty Banks, who's got quite a cult following in New Zealand, and rightly so. You know, he's from the West Coast. He's had an interesting sort of career, and probably made the best of his career, but probably had a pretty unforgettable last 20 minutes, topped off with an injury that's going to keep him out for a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I would just my only counter to this to your argument here is if we look at England versus Wales at the 2015 Rugby World Cup, where England kicked to the corner, called the line out to the front, and then got driven into touch.
Yeah.
So if you do throw it to the front, you do reduce your options for that. So I understand why teams like to go to the back in that situation.
Yeah.
But my final sort of, or unless you got another one, but my final Mickey Mouse moment of the week was Lamapi. I think was he catching a crossfield kick or something, and then ran into and knocked over Hewson, who sprawled on the floor. Yep. Players taking themselves out, which I thought was I always enjoy that kind of foolery.
I think there was the odd pass that went over the sideline to the touch judge as well, but I just can't recall which game it was. So there was we've seen a couple of those moments this year, namely Will Jordan and the New South Wales Canterbury game, looking for his man on the outside. But wait a minute, I am the man on the outside.
Now he got himself a couple of tries this weekend as the Crusaders got themselves out of jail against the Brumbies.
Yeah,
and that was yes. He's
real surprise to anybody who wasn't tuning into that game. The Brumbies, in a real surprise, led 7-0 at halftime. Probably should have led by a little bit more. Such was their dominance. But this Crusaders team, once they get on a roll, wow.
I think you're being too kind. They should have led by a lot more than that. Not just a little bit more. They should have been like 14 or 21 points ahead at that point. They totally had that first half under control and just couldn't finish. Which was actually this was something I've not written in the notes, but I think we should probably talk about. Is we had that game where again, one try in that first half. We had there was a 0-0 game between the Reds and the Stormers. In the first half. We just talked about the Sharks managed to spend the first 20 minutes butchering opportunities against the Lions. What is it with teams that they just can't score early on? I mean, we had lots of teams at the weekend lots of games at the weekend went quite a long time before they actually got going.
Yeah, I did see an article was about the lack of tries, but more about the defences being a lot stronger than previous seasons. Apparently there's been a little bit of decline, which they've put down to some really good defence. So tries have been a lot harder to score, but I can't quite put my finger down. Maybe probably at the end of the day, just skill, execution. Paul, when it really matters, on the other side of the coin, you sort of look at the Blues game where they went out to a point a minute, stuck on 17 points against the Waratahs, and for a moment they looked like they were going to put on a masterclass, but that came to a shuddering halt because the Waratahs came right back into the game.
Yeah, no, very true. Yep, I forgot about that one. But I think there might be an element of early on the defence is still fit. So if someone makes still fit, it's still fresh. So if someone makes a mistake, there's more opportunity. Players are more likely to be able to cover it and get back to cover mistakes than later on when they're a bit more tired. But even so, it was very noticeable this weekend that a lot of the games, there weren't many scores in that first half at all.
Oh, listen, and I think you've got to have. I think when you're taking on teams, you've got to have very sound tactics as well. I think back to that game last Friday night between the Hurricanes and the Highlanders. Just when it looked like the Highlanders were taking control of that game, I think they pushed out to about 27-18. I think they had a 2-try score lead, and they pretty much got that lead by hanging on to the ball. And then all of a sudden, for some unknown reason, Marty Banks decided he should kick it down the throat of one Beauden Barrett. Well, and the Hurricanes have shown, a lot of question marks about their type 5 this year, but one thing you don't give them is space to run it from the back, and that's where Beauden Barrett, interestingly enough, and I know we'll probably talk a little bit about that tomorrow, but man, in that fullback position, when given a bit of space, how dangerous is he?
Very dangerous, but so is a certain Dame McKenzie as well. He's not the only one that's dangerous there.
Yeah.
So some interesting stuff there going on in Super Rugby. Not quite sure why, but keep an eye on that over the next couple of weeks and see if it becomes a trend or not. So you were talking about the Magnificent Seven, as you called them, for the Blues. So the Blues during the week announced that they had re-signed a bunch of players, and those players are Maffiello. Maffiello? Anyway, Robinson. Okay, after you. Go on and please educate me.
Marfilio. There's Caleb Clark, Tom Robinson, James Parsons, the veteran.
Yep.
We can say veteran.
I think we can say veteran with James Parsons.
We can say veteran. He has re-signed. Ortede Black, I think, is another one. Now there's maybe one or two others in there.
So TJ Fiani and Perifetta are the other two. So interesting that Black and Perifetta have both re-signed. Now, I think all of them have re-signed until 2020 except for Caleb Clark, which is not Caleb Clark, Clark, who has signed through till 2021. So 7 players there, all re-signed. Now, any names there that you're a bit... obviously, Parsons, as you say, veteran. But you do need to keep some leadership in the side. Interesting that Black and Perfetta are both fly halves, both happy to stay, maybe?
Yeah, you almost get the impression Ortede back for his first year, he was pretty much out injured really for the first year, wasn't he? We never got to see him during the 2018 season, and probably it's probably a good sign that maybe he can see something at the end of the rainbow, so to speak. He realises there's a whole lot of young guys. I suppose for Blues supporters, there's a certain couple of brothers that I think a lot of Blues supporters would be super excited if they signed on the dotted line. And I'm talking about the Ioane brothers.
But they already have re-signed, haven't they?
They have re-signed. Okay.
Yeah. So they re-signed last year. So I think Rico signed up for like 4 years, and I think Akiri signed up for 2. So they're both returning anyway.
Wasn't totally aware of that, but it's good. You as I suppose as a coach, you want continuity. Interestingly enough, it'll be interesting to see how the cards fall, shall we say, Paul. I think there are definitely going to be some challenges, especially in and around midfield. It'll be interesting to see what Sonny Bill and maybe the Blues can get maybe one more season out of Manonu in 2020. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. It's unlikely that Sonny Bill will stay with the Blues, so they'll probably be looking for other midfield offerings. They'll also have to look at replacing Milani Nanai. That's real unfortunate because he just seems to have found his way at this level of rugby.
Yeah, I mean, Nanai, to me, there's an interesting one. He's somebody that I've watched play, and when I watch Israel Folau play, for example, and he seems to look around for a pass, and if it's not Foley, Beale or Hooper, he holds on to the ball and doesn't pass it.
Yeah.
Last year, he kind of like, sorry mate, you're not good enough. I'm actually better off trying myself than you are.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing a bit of that in Nanai. That basically looks, if it's Rico or Kiri, then he'll pass it. If it's not, then he'll quite often hold on to it and have a go. And you kind of not that real team player.
Yeah, seen a couple of examples of that actually. I can think back to the Crusaders game where he had Tom Robinson on the outside, absolutely totally ignored him, and would have been good to have seen the big red flashing down on that north stand side of Eden Park with a bit of space, because we know that he can run. But you do the basics first. If you've got a man on the outside, you feed that guy on the outside, and you back up. It's pretty simple, isn't it?
Yeah, and so I'm not a big fan of Nanai, to be honest. Yes, he's a good player and does some very good things, but I think he's got deficiencies that need to be overcome. And one of those, is that not trust of only trusting certain players. So for me, that's that. Now, the other side of it is that this season last season, we saw Auckland win the Mitre 10 Cup with a whole bunch of players, and there are a number of players in that team that didn't make the Blues that people were thinking, well, they're good enough. So, I mean, two spring to mind, one of whom has come to the Chiefs, which is the centre that was playing next to TJ Fiani. I've gone blank as the guy's name. Sorry?
Yeah, Tumua.
And the Canadian lock as well. Olmsted. So two players.
There's one. I was about to say, Paul. There's one other as well who and here's a scoop for our listeners out there. I believe Robbie Abel will sign with the Blues for 2020. There you go. There's a scoop for you.
So where is he at the moment?
Currently with the Melbourne Rebels.
Oh, okay.
I think he's currently with the Melbourne because he didn't go back to the Brumbies, so I think he's currently with the Melbourne Rebels at the moment.
So there's basically we saw this all these players who are playing well, good form, earned themselves what a lot of us thought earned themselves the right to have a Super Rugby contract, and then basically were blocked by players who had signed the previous year, and there weren't spaces for them. So. Whilst we have signed these 7 players, and there are some in there that I think, like Robinson, like TJ, who have kind of really earned themselves, and actually probably Clark as well, who earned themselves an extension with how they've played this season. Parsons earned himself probably as a veteran. But I'm not sure. But I'm just wondering, are we seeing that there isn't enough space being left for Mitre 10 Cup guys to earn their way into the sides?
I think probably for a lot of the coaches, a lot of them sort of want their consistency, so they try to basically tie up as many players as they can, and probably just leave those positions open that they need to fill. Now, in the case of the Blues, I know that. What I'm hearing is somebody like Matt Moles will be heading offshore. He's probably just a little disgruntled that he hasn't really got a lot of game time. But on saying that, he probably hasn't challenged James Parsons enough. And to be fair enough, I hear a lot of criticism of James Parsons. But to be fair to him, he does listen. He brings full noise. It may be not the same impact as a Dane Coles or a Cody Taylor, as one of those level hookers, but he still offers a heck of a lot. So I suppose when you go back to Mitre 10 Cup, that's the next place you've really got to look around, or else you've got to go outside your own franchise and look around. But if you look at all the hookers around the country, Paul, they're all pretty much locked up, aren't they?
They are, and some of them aren't that decent, aren't that much of a step up either. So, Harris has got his line out throwing issues and others. So, yeah, I get the continuity side of things, but it's kind of like, how do you reward good Mitre 10 Cup performances? I'm not so sure.
I'll tell you what, I was going to say, Paul, Tom Robinson is an example of a guy who basically, I think his first 3 or 4 games for Northern, he was probably the player of the day in every game, and I know the Blues coaches at the time were super impressed. So they shot up to Whangarei and had a chat to him, and then he got injured and never came back until later in the season. Now I've got to say, he was probably just picked solely on that pre-season form, Paul, and probably a lot of the feedback that would have been given from the Northern coaches. So listen, that's the great thing about about Mitre 10 rugby. Guys come out of nowhere. Look at the turnaround circumstances of one Sevu Reece. I tell you what, getting in trouble with the law, dare I say it, is but almost turned into a godsend, isn't it, Paul? You know, I don't condone what he did, but you know, it was looking this time last year. It was looking pretty dour for Sevu Reece. You know, he was about to sign an overseas contract with, was it Ulster?
No, he had a contract signed with Connacht, which they then cancelled because of his legal issues. So yeah, and the well, perhaps I shouldn't go there because I've having been in and around the Waikato club, the squad, I've heard a lot of stuff behind the scenes as to what happened there. So I think some of the stuff that came out that was clear. A, he admitted it, which was good. B, him and his partner went to counselling to try and sort things out. So I think he has taken a lot of the right steps, and also his partner, who, as I said, has had some issues of her own. Look, they're going through the right steps, and I think it's the right that. It's good when you see people who realise they've made mistakes and look at fixing themselves, and that's the case what we have here. Oh,
and talk about taking your chances with both hands. Oh, I mean, it's like pretty amazing. Listen, if you're ever fortunate enough to end up at a franchise, I suppose the Crusaders is the franchise you'd want to end up there. You know, Fitu Douglas is another example from. You know, I personally was never really sure whether he was maybe just a good Mitre 10 Cup player, but once again, an example of a guy who's just absolutely taken his opportunities. And you know, this time next year, Paul will probably be talking about somebody else who's taking their opportunities by having a good Mitre 10 Cup season.
Yeah, well, and Sevu Reece, from my understanding, is that he is already internationally tied as a Fijian player. So hence that's why he counts as a foreign player. And because the Chiefs understood he was going overseas, they signed themselves the Japanese international, which then meant that when Sevu Reece came available, they didn't have the space for him, which is why he's ended up down in Christchurch. Luckily for him, and really unluckily for Israel Dag, who we'll talk about tomorrow, Israel's had to unfortunately retire, but that has then gone and given Sevu Reece the opportunity to basically stay now permanently with that Crusaders squad and get a proper contract, which is good to see.
That doesn't seem fair, does it, Paul? You've got Havili, you've got Will Jordan. Oh my God, you know, you've got George Bridge. Seriously?
No, I mean absolutely, and I'm trying to figure out how he has been tied to Fiji, because I can't see that he's actually played any international rugby there yet. So maybe he's just, and he moved over here in 2014 and to attend Hamilton Boys High School. So he's been here for getting on towards 5 years now. So from a residency point of view, you'd think he'd qualify for New Zealand.
Well, you can bet dollars to donuts, Paul, that there'll be a contract table by the Crusaders come season end, wouldn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he does appear to be the replacement for Israel Dag, as you say. The space has opened up for him. So yeah, no, he's a guy who has taken his opportunities very well. He's someone that was pushing for. I'm not sure if he actually beat. I've gone blank. He was the Waikato assistant coach. Has the Waikato try scoring record.
Roger Randall.
There we go. But he was on track to beat to surpass Roger Randall's season try scoring record. I'm not quite sure whether he did or not last season, but yeah, he's definitely up for that. I'm just looking at his stats. Apparently, they reckon that he scored 124 points, 23 tries, 1 penalty, and 3 conversions for Waikato. Quite when he's kicked goals, I've got no idea because I didn't see those last season.
Listen, only 22. He's only 22 years old, as well. So
he is, but he's a player who's come through the sevens program again. He's a very good sevens player. Let's be honest, he's not the biggest player in the world. Size is an issue. Could potentially be an issue for him at international level. But boy, he's got pace and he's got feet.
I'll tell you what, he's listed at 87. He's listed at 87 kgs. Was Shane Williams any bigger than that?
I'm not sure. But yeah, he's not.
But he had amazing footwork, didn't he?
He did.
Amazing footwork.
But I'd say, he's not a big player, which he might say he may cause him issues at international level if he ever gets there. So he's been a very good sevens player for Waikato.
There's one Damien McKenzie who could argue against all this. You know that. Eh? What's he about 80 kgs dripping wet?
Well, yes, true. He is also on the slight side. Actually, I'll look him up. So we'll have to. We'll see how he goes. But that's I think there needs to be the super teams need to keep space for the players that do come through because I think it's definitely a need for them. A need for those spaces.
Paul, if I can interject, I was about to say Sevu Reese has got. He's got 9 kgs on Damien McKenzie.
Yeah, 78 kgs.
78 kgs. Okay, we'll just forget about talking about size. Size does not matter.
Really? Because I think I'm probably around about 78 kgs, and I tell you, I'm there's no way I could.
Oh, wow.
I think I'm around. I've got no idea. I haven't weighed myself in a long time. So anyway, that's how heavy they are. We're going to run out of time to talk about all this, but there is a whole bunch of stuff that's come out about the about Super Rugby 14. Apparently, it's going to leave a $7 million hole in the budgets for the Australian franchises. That's I'm not convinced they've gone the right way with this. I know a lot of people are very happy and are saying less is more, and saying, hey, Super 12s was when it was at its best with rose-tinted glasses. But you can't turn back the clock, and I'm concerned for the direction rugby's going in. So Super Rugby's gone in. What are your thoughts on Super 14? Do you think it's still the right way, or do you think they've made a mistake?
It's kind of frustrating because the Sunwolves have finally found their feet, and needless to say, like we spoke about, like a team like the Brumbies, we all expected the Brumbies to get absolutely shellacked, but to be fair, that final score probably flattered the Crusaders on Saturday, and they were more than competitive. But we saw the Waratahs on Saturday night, very competitive. That game could have gone either way. We know what's the best Australian team that's going at the moment. Is that
that's the Rebels?
Yep. Rebels. They're on 20. They're on 23 points. They're in clear second place. They've only lost 2 games, and they're playing some really, really good code.
They are. The only question mark around the Rebels is the fact that the 2 games they've lost have been outside Australia. They've not won outside Australia yet. So that's the only question mark around them.
And the South African conference, well, I think you said it yourself, Paul. It's just an absolute freaking basket case to pick a winner in that particular conference over there, and that's exactly what you want from a competition. So, yeah, it's a little bit frustrating, and I think the Sunwolves is everybody's second team because you do see a few foreign players out there. I know there's the argument from another faction who will say, oh, well, this doesn't help Japanese rugby, but listen, Japan have got their own competition, but this is also franchise rugby where people can follow a team at another higher level, Paul. A little bit like how we're passionate about our Mitre 10 Cup teams, but we love following our franchise teams as well. They just the Sunwolves, if they kind of look at the season, I can probably think they really should have beaten the Reds. They really should have beaten the Waratahs, but unfortunately, their Achilles heel this year has been their line-out, Paul. It's just absolutely imploded when they've actually needed to be at their best, because no question they can score tries, and they got a guy that can kick goals from anywhere on the paddock.
Yeah, the winger, I've just gone blank as to his name now. That's
Nasawira.
Oh, he is having a stonking season.
Talk about, once again, you talk about footwork as well. Wow. But see, here's a guy who couldn't get a contract in Super Rugby in New Zealand, and all of a sudden he's gone overseas, been exposed to this level of rugby, and hey, guess what?
Yep.
He's playing behind a team that plays a good, expensive brand of rugby, and they certainly see when they first came into the competition a few years ago, and I don't even know. Have their Japanese players played for them this year, Paul?
Some of them have, but not. Yeah, definitely not all of them yet.
We haven't seen Michael Leach though. We haven't seen Leach, the skipper though.
Nope.
Run.
So we definitely haven't. And to me, it's the right thing to do is to integrate those players back. To take a team and then just switch it would have been really the wrong. To take it to say, right, yeah, suddenly 1 week we're playing this side. Now we're going to play the Japanese team next week, was the wrong way to go. So I think they've done the right thing to integrate the players back into the side.
Just on Australian rugby, I know they're probably concerned about that shortfall of $7 million. But one thing they should be excited about is, all of a sudden they're just starting to develop some good young players again. And I think the fact that they've got somebody like a Quade Cooper who's back playing rugby at this level again, and to be fair, he's leading this Sunwolves team around quite this Rebels team around quite expertly at this stage. See, I can't get the Sunwolves out of my mind at the minute. I think it's a really good thing, and they've got some players that are. We've always had some players that you had question marks on it, but even if you look at their midfield at the moment, Karevi looks in really good form, and boy, he's a hell of a unit as well. He's over 100 Ks, 6'2", and he's a genuine line breaker. And I'm just trying to think of the.
So you got Karevi, you got Kurandrani, playing well for the Brumbies. You've then got Beale can play 12. You've got Adam Ashley Cooper back playing 13. You got Curtis Rona playing 12 as well.
And you think to yourself, if a Wallaby team got an attacking situation, say for example, just on the 22, the crossfield kick from first five just
Foley to Folau. Yeah.
Foley, if he can put that on a dime, Folau just catches that every day of the week, doesn't he?
He does, which is why I would be playing Folau on the right wing. I wouldn't be playing him at fullback. I play him in the right wing, and I put Beale at fullback.
It's true what they say. Great minds do think alike.
So we've run out of time, but I was going to talk about some of the broadcaster suggestions. So I'll put that into a for your ears only opinion piece on behind patreon.com/DrivingMaul this week. And that'll probably be on Thursday. So look out for that, because there's a whole bunch of stuff being suggested there around neutral venues. We talked earlier about players being able to play outside. There's talks about having themed round, single sponsors, and also changes to the Rugby Championship as well. So I'll talk about all of that in there. But which games are you looking forward to this weekend?
I'll tell you what, I'm very curious to see how the Blues are going to go this weekend away from Eden Park, which has sort of been a bit of a fortress the last three games or so. Heading down to a rejuvenated Chiefs team who have had a good week off. Really looking forward to that game. It's not going to be easy. This will, I think it's probably a defining game for both teams. I think if the Blues win, then onwards and upwards, and we can truly say, yeah, they've just got over a mental hurdle of beating a New Zealand team away. But if they lose, it doesn't get any easier because they're away again next week. And from what I understand after that, I think they may only have the 2 home games left.
Well, they've just won 4 home games on the trot. The opening game of the round, the opening game of the season against the Crusaders was a home game. That's 5 home games, and you only get 8. So is it 8? Because 16 games. Yeah. So they've got 3 more home games to come.
So a lot of games on the road. I think they've also got the Hurricanes last round and second to last round. I think there might be somewhere in there's the Crusaders.
But at least they've got their tour to South Africa and Argentina out the way.
Oh, very, very much so. And unlike Super Rugby last year, there's no break in the season. So
because your Crusaders, your Highlanders, and Hurricanes have all still got to do that. The Chiefs went and they actually won both their games, so the Chiefs will be happy to get out of the way as well. But the other 3 have still got to go. But so I'll be live with post-match reaction to that game on YouTube. So do check that out. For me though, Battle of the South Island, Crusaders versus Highlanders on Friday night. Really looking forward to that. I will be at the Zone Sports Bar in Hamilton at Sky City. So if you're in Hamilton, come and join me to watch that game. Myself and John O'Connor will be up on stage giving you a pre-game entertainment. So we'll go through. We won't be doing a song and dance. What we'll actually be doing is telling you we'll be previewing the game. We'll be back up at half time to fill in the ad breaks, and then we'll give you a post-match reaction to the game as well. So come and join us. That's free at the Zone Sports Bar. Come and have if you want to get there early, obviously being Friday night, so knock off work, head down there, play a round of golf. Yep, they have an indoor golf simulator, so you play a round of golf, have an eat, and then watch the rugby. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that, does it? Really? There you go. So that's a good one. The other games I think are all Rebels, Stormers. I think we know that got to go with Rebels there. The Brumbies, Lions. Well, we've just seen what happened to the Lions last weekend. So if they don't bounce back from that, then they're in for a long old season. Bulls, Reds. I think Reds on the road are going to struggle. The Sharks, Jaguares could be an interesting one. Jaguares just beat the Bulls at the weekend, and obviously the Sharks had that big performance against the Lions. So that should be, if you want to get up and have a sort of early morning game or middle of the night game, the Sharks versus the Jaguares is one I would probably give you a tip to be a decent game. So thank you very much, sir. I will talk to you again tomorrow night.
No problems.
Thank you everyone who has joined us in the live chat and has been watching the show. For those who are on the recording, don't forget up there is how you can subscribe to the channel. Down there is how you become a member of Patreon that I've been talking about during the show. And over there, the artificial intelligence here at YouTube says you'll enjoy those videos. So go give them a click.
Get well, Ashwin. We need you.
Yay, come back, Ashwin.